Well, yesterday's release of Grand Theft Auto 5 is expected to make up to $1 billion within its first month. But what else does it generate? Brent Stafford studies violent gaming research, joins us to discuss the game that everyone's talking about. So why don't we have a discussion about it too? You were in a story featured on CTV News at 6, done by our very own Peter Granger, talking about how you're a little concerned, maybe a little more than concerned about this game.
Well, I've been involved in video game research since the early 1990s, right after I left the CBC Television News from the Okanagan. I did my master's at SFU, and I focused that on research being done up at SFU by Dr. Stephen Klein and a group of researchers up there that focused on video games, video game violence and addiction, and the effects both physiologically and psychologically on kids.
Now, with that in mind, when we see this game, and we're and obviously, as we mentioned, it's going to make a lot of money, and a lot of people are going to be playing it and watching it. What is your biggest concern about it in terms of why we should, as not only adults but parents of people playing these games, be a little worried? Well,
the first thing is that video games are more than a toy. They're a communication medium. People don't think of video games as communications, but they are. They really are. And in fact, when you're playing a video game and you're immersed in a video game, you're assimilating the values and the norms and the themes that are embedded in that play experience. And when it comes to a game like Grand Theft Auto 5, those values and norms and themes are one where you take an AR-15 and you go down on the Santa Monica Boulevard and you sniper rifle and shoot people in the head. Right. Those are the values.
Well, and you know, the thing is, though, Brent, a lot of people have been making connections between, and mentioning the fact, I should say, that the shooter involved in the Washington, D.C. incident at the Navy Yard used to play video games. They talk about the guy involved in the school shooting in Connecticut over Christmas, last Christmas. Again, played video games. But is that a bit of a leap, again, based on the research that you've done or the work that you've done? Is that not a bit of a leap? Because there are millions of people playing this game that aren't picking up rifles and guns and going and shooting at public places.
Yeah, first of all, what's happening since Columbine? Inevitably, after every shooting, Columbine, Aurora, Colorado, Sandy Hook, now the Navy Yard shooting, one common denominator always seems to be violent gaming, and that's a fact. And what has been coming out in the research over the last 15 years is that there is a link. Where you find that the most are in two ways. One is the desensitization to violence that happens. Gaming is different than just watching a feature film because, you know, playing Cowboys and Indians is imagination and interaction with your friends. Watching a feature film is suspend your disbelief and enjoy the entertainment. But when you're gaming, you're actually immersed in the experience. You're actually making the choice to kill over thousands and thousands of times. So when we look at that, we go, for people who are troubled in their life, who have maybe mental illness or some issues with isolation and so forth, what's the repeated experience of killing? And it is having an effect.
But to that end, are you or other people who study games like this calling for some type of action on behalf of the video game companies? And if so, what is that action that you'd like to see?
Well, certainly you hope that the market can fix something like this as opposed to regulation. I'm all for the market. However, the fact is that violent video games are the ones that sell the most. And they cost so much to make now, $80 to $100 million, that they have to limit their risk. So they make what sells, and violence sells, right? So what you're kind of hoping is to call on Hollywood and the creative industry to tone down the realism and to tone down the devastating effects.
But that's the thing. Okay, when we saw the game there, clearly it looks like, and for lack of a better word, a cartoon. It doesn't look like the two of us here. Look at that. I mean, the images that we see there, I mean, it's clearly animation and all that. And to that effect, we've been watching cartoons for ages, and granted that wasn't interactive, but there was also a notion 20, 30 years ago that we'd be desensitized to violence because after the coyote gets stomped by the roadrunner, he gets up and moves again. So my point to you is, when we talk about Hollywood stepping forward, it's like saying the media. How do you expect them to sort of rally together and make that change when there's big money on the table?
Well, that's what makes it so, you know, difficult to get your hands around, right? Because it's the same thing, how do you affect gun control, even for that matter? There's not an easy answer when it comes to this. Take a look at where we have now the Navy Yard shooting Aaron Alexis. I believe he's 34, meaning that when we produced Insert Coin Culture video game play, he would have been around 15 years old. So he's a perfect example. It's not just kids anymore that you got to worry about. You got to worry about the adults who've been immersed in gaming for the last 15, 20 years. Some personal responsibility, better mental health services, more responsibility on Hollywood to not produce this kind of gaming content. And overall, we as a society have to say, you know, enough is enough.
And people have been saying that. There was someone head of a trauma center saying, I want you to put my my business out of business, you know, because obviously the medical community, first and foremost, is also fed up with what we're seeing. Brent, I wish we had more time. Thank you so much for joining us. In the meantime,
thank you.
If you want to know more about video game violence, leave a comment on or talk about this, in fact, leave a comment on our Facebook page or our Twitter feed as well. You can also get a hold of us, care of CTV Morning Live.ca. Here's Ann Lou with the latest in traffic.